Good morning, soccer aficionados, football fans worldwide. It is another episode of Edging a Win here on YouTube. Thanks for joining us this Saturday morning. We have 4 more best bets for you from around the world of football and soccer, including, and I don't say this often, a huge bet in the MLS this weekend. I don't say it ever, but I'm guaranteeing Ian a winner this week. And before I get into those best bets, although I just sort of introduced Ian, I gotta formally do it. The man to my left, the face of the program, knower of all things football, owner of a 1987 Volkswagen Golf hatchback, and a man that will soon be forced to hang out with his wife as all things European football comes close to an end. Ian, how are you doing this morning?
Hello, Matt. Great to be here once again. Another fantastic introduction from yourself. I will admit to many things, and I'm accused of many things, but I refuse to spend time with my wife. That is where I draw the line. Look, I'm looking forward to your bet in the MLS. We need some winners. We need to get back on the horse. We had a terrible weekend last weekend, but we're confident we're going to get some winners. We've got some. It's the end of the regular season in 3 of the big leagues in Europe. We've got a huge game to round off the English season as well. Let's get into it. I think we're going to have a good weekend.
We're going to have a great show. We're going to have a good weekend of betting. Make sure you go look at Ian's social media right there below on YouTube. Ian OUFC's absolutely popping off. Everybody's subscribing to him, so make sure you do so in the meantime. I know we're going to get into our bets right away. It's going to be a fun weekend, and it starts off with a bang, Ian. So with your first best bet of this weekend, I think it's coming up in about 58 minutes. What do you have?
It is the FA Cup final, Matt. The final game of the English season, and it is a massive derby between the 2 clubs in Manchester. Manchester City versus Manchester United. You're right, just under an hour's time to kick off. And we are hopeful that there are going to be goals in this one. Over 2.5 goals is our first bet of the weekend. Look, the FA Cup, I know it's lost a little bit of its prestige to when I was a youngster, but this still is a juggernaut of a game, and it should still be one that attracts a lot of attention all around the globe. Of course, you've got Manchester City, who are dominating English football at the moment, and they're looking to add the second piece of their treble with a win in the FA Cup. But standing in their way are Manchester United. The Red Devils will be desperate to stop them. Not only are they City rivals and fierce rivals to Manchester City, but also they are the only team to have ever done a treble in English football. That is winning the League, the FA Cup, and the Champions League in the same season. And they will be desperately trying to stop Man City from doing that. But Man City, the Sky Blues, will be favourites in this one, especially with the half-human, half-cyborg up front in Erling Haaland, who looks unstoppable. But there is some injury doubts for Man City with the likes of Grealish, Akanji, Diaz and De Bruyne, who are injury doubts. Man United will be relying on what they've in recent weeks been a very, very good defensive side. And with David De Gea in goal, they look very rock solid in that department. Casemiro is the engine room in the midfield. And with Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford, Man United certainly do have a chance of causing an upset in this one. Cup finals can sometimes be a bit turgid and don't live up to the hype, but I think this one will. And fingers crossed, we're going to get a load of goals.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Again, 56 minutes away till that match starts. I just want viewers to be aware of something when it comes to these finals that's a little, sometimes beginner bettors have trouble with this, but remember when you're betting overs or even on the money line in these matches, it is a 90-minute betting. So if you take over 2.5 and for some reason, and most likely sometimes it is a 1-1 draw going into extra time, you would still lose. It does have to be over 2.5 goals, so keep that in mind. Listen, I know this is a big derby game, but how important actually do both sides actually view this FA Cup? Also, I know there's been some big upsets in the FA Cup over the years. Where, if Man U wins this, where would that put on the scale of upsets?
I'll come back to the upset bit, but that wouldn't be huge. I mean, let's say it would be an upset, but Man United is still a fine side. I mean, they finished fourth in the Premier League and still arguably the biggest side in the world in many people's eyes. So it wouldn't be the massivest of massive shocks. And what a terrible sentence that was. But I mean, City. It's not if you ask both of them at the start of the season, this is going to be the third trophy they would want to win. It's very much an afterthought behind the league and behind the Champions League. So for Manchester City, I would say they want to win it, but if they lost this one and they won the Champions League, I would say they would be pretty happy with that one. So probably it's a bigger game for Manchester United because as I said earlier on in the season, they're still trying to recapture their luster of when they had Alex Ferguson in charge, recapture that glory. They hadn't won anything for a long, long time since Erik ten Hag took over. So if they can get a second trophy of the season, a win over the rivals, that would be a nice platform for Man United to hopefully maybe go on next season and challenge maybe for the title in the Premier League.
Well, I'm excited
I didn't answer the upsets bit. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's two in my mind. The biggest one ever is in the 80s. I think it was like, I can't remember the year, but look it up. It was Liverpool played Wimbledon. Liverpool were all conquering. They used to win absolutely everything. Wimbledon with his tiny little side. No one gave them a chance. And Wimbledon went and beat Liverpool by 1-0. Vinnie Jones, I don't know if you know him, but that was like him. He was famous for playing for Wimbledon in that one. And about 10 years ago or so, Wigan Athletic beat Manchester City in a final. It was 1-0 goal in the very last minute of the game. Wigan got relegated from the Premier League that season. I think Man City won the title, so it was a bit of a shock.
I do know Vinnie Jones. My cousin Vinny, everybody knows him here in America. Good guy.
It's Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. You must know that movie.
I love it. I can't wait. Again, 54 minutes away from the FA Cup final. Looking forward to it. I know everybody roots for Man City and you know they want to see a treble. But personally, I'm all about that base. So we move on. We go to our next best bet. Ian, I know you're looking at. I believe it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's the last match day in Serie A today, and I think there's not too much going on. But what do you find in this league?
Yeah, that's right. It is the final weekend of games in Serie A, and with bet number 2 is going to be Torino versus Inter Milan. That's about 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. And again, we're looking at goals in this one, and again, it's over 2.5 goals is our bet number 2. You're absolutely right. It's a dead rubber game. The only thing on this one is Inter Milan have an outside chance of finishing second in the league as opposed to third, but that doesn't really mean a lot because you qualify for the Champions League anyway. But I think this one still should be a pretty good game. Inter Milan have been very entertaining in recent weeks and have scored over 2.5 goals in 6 of the last 7 games. I think in the last game they were 2-0 up in about 5 minutes. So if they can get that this weekend, that'll be absolutely fantastic. Lukaku and Martinez have been banging in the goals for Inter, but Inter also are a bit weak at the back. They don't have the strongest defence. And I would say Torino will be looking at that as an area they can exploit them with the likes of Vlasic and the likes of Sanabria being their main threats. I think Torino's Sanabria, I wouldn't be shocked if he goes to a higher ranked side, either in Italy or in another place in Europe over the summer. Very, very good finisher and decent in the air as well. He will attract some attention. He's got double figures goals this season. Inter Milan obviously have a bigger game on the horizon next weekend where they play Man City in the Champions League final, but I don't think they'll be resting many players for this one, and I think they will want to end the season with a pretty big win.
Now, I know we are going to talk Champions League preview coming up in just a little bit, but what can you sum up in this Italy Serie A League? What is there to actually play for?
Yeah, let's have a look at it. Your big bugbear is these games that don't matter at the end of the season.
Hate it. Absolutely hate it.
Yeah, well, so Napoli won the league quite convincingly. They're way ahead of everybody else. But you got Lazio in second, Inter Milan third, AC Milan fourth. That is a done deal, closed shop. No one else can get in the Champions League. You've got the battle for the Europa League and Conference League places between Atalanta, Roma, and Juventus. Roma's form has absolutely deserted them in the last few weeks of the season. Obviously, losing that cup final in the week to Sevilla means that they are not guaranteed European football next season. Down the bottom, It's between two sides. It's between Spezia and it is between Verona. Weirdly, in Italy, they're not doing what they did in the Premier League with everyone playing at the same time. So they have got staggered kickoff times over the weekend. So teams may know their fate before the other teams playing. But that is pretty much it for Italy. Cremonese and Sampdoria are the other two sides relegated.
Yeah, I did find that actually interesting. There was a Serie A match yesterday, just a
Yes,
standalone.
Yeah, it was indeed. I believe that was... Yeah, Fiorentina probably asked for their game to be played early because they got their cup final with West Ham. So they probably granted them... They're probably pretty good with that in Italy about moving their kickoff times to help the sides play in European competitions. I think that Fiorentina did end up that with a pretty nice win. I think that the team they were playing against had Sassuolo had two players sent off, which helped them quite.
Yeah, it was a 3-1 victory there for Fiorentina. We will get into more of the Europa Conference final in just a moment, but to round off your weekend best bet number 3, we're looking at, I think, another last match day in La Liga, and this is two teams we really don't talk about too much. What do you see here?
Yeah, exactly right. Best bet number 3, and it is a game with a lot on it. It is Espanyol versus Almeria. It is Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are looking at Espanyol on the money line. And yes, it is a relegation battle on the final weekend of the season. Espanyol are already relegated. So it is Almeria who are the ones who need to get something out of this game to ensure that they stay in Spain's top flight. But I think Espanyol are going to be the ones who win it. I think they're going to play with a freedom. I think they'll have no nerves, and I think it's all going to be on Almeria, who will not know how to approach this game. They've won just one game away from home all season, so they clearly don't travel well. And Espanyol have been pretty free scoring of late. They've scored at least 2 goals in 5 of the last 6 games, so that shows me that I think they're going to end the season, give their fans a feel-good moment, even though they're going to be relegated. Almeria are going to be the ones looking over their shoulder and hoping that results go their way. But that is my bet number 3, Espanyol to win this game, Espanyol on the money line.
Yeah, I love that because, being an American, a lot of teams over here like to play spoiler, and I think we see Espanyol there in as the spoiler role. Kind of like we went over Italy real quick. Anything else shaken out in La Liga that we need to pay attention to this weekend?
Yeah, well, just like in Italy, top 4 is already done and dusted. You've got Barcelona, obviously won the league quite comfortably. It's between Real Madrid and Atleti Madrid, who come second or third, but Sociedad are in that 4th place spot. Villarreal in 5th, comfortably in 5th, so and Real Betis in 6th, comfortably too. So Europa Conference League, I mean, again, we're celebrating who could finish 7th place in the league. But you have got a battle between Osasuna, who are in 7th, Athletic Bilbao, Girona, Real Vallecano. All could have a chance of getting in the Europa Conference League. Sevilla are in 11th. They already qualify for the Champions League because they won the Europa League in the week. So that's massive for them, even though they only finished halfway up the table. Down the bottom, Elche already got relegated a long time ago. Espanyol relegated, as we said. So it's between Real Valladolid, Celta Vigo, and Almeria. I think that I looked at it. Celta Vigo, I think, either play Barcelona or Real. And I think Valladolid have a tough game too. So I wouldn't say it's going to be easy for either of those sides to get a win. Almeria play Espanyol. We've already talked. I don't fancy them. Valencia on 41 points as well. Getafe on 41 points too. And I think Cadiz on 41 points too also could get sucked into it too. So Spain, unlike Italy and unlike the Premier League, there are a lot more teams fighting for stuff on the final day at least.
Yeah, I love all 3 of those bets. Before we jump into our next segment where we talk Champions League, Europa Conference League, JD, what's up, buddy? Friend of the program. He wants to know if we're picking the FA Cup. We started off with the FA Cup with a total bet, but Ian, just to throw it out to you, if you had to choose, who's winning, Man City or Man U?
I think Man City will win it. I think it'd just be too strong for Man United. I think that it will be... I do think there are going to be goals in this one. I'd go for 3-1 Man City.
Yeah, actually, if there's no goals, it might get a little bit nervy for Man City if it's only a 1-0 going into the 80th minute. So I do expect there to be goals. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, Man City will just try and dominate the game. They'll dominate the ball. Man United will be looking to try and hit them on the counter-attack, on the break, and just trying to absorb it. So it will be... hopefully it should be a very interesting game, and hopefully we don't get sucked into this kind of boring cat and mouse game, which sometimes does happen in cup finals. But I definitely don't think. I do think Man United definitely do have a chance of creating an upset. I wouldn't say it's cut and dry at all.
If you had, like, I'm thinking this way, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Man City's going to want to come out and they're going to want to get up early in this match, so they don't have to have those nerves come the 80th minute. So I think if it's like the 20th minute in this one and there's a 0-0 scoreline, I think betting over one or half a goal in that first half with 25 minutes to go might be a nice bet there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. But Man City are. I mean, they're relentless in the way they play. They just continually pass and move. They get the ball, they dominate the ball, they keep you penned into your own half. So it's on a what should be a pretty warm day at Wembley as well. It's very energy sapping to just chase the ball around, constantly chasing it from side to side. And that's what City pride themselves on. That's what Pep Guardiola has always had his sides doing, is keeping possession and just trying to eke out little scoring opportunities and wear the side down. So I think they will try and get goals, but I think also City are very patient and they just back themselves to find a way, even if they don't get a goal in the first 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah, and they can, well, as we know, they can put up 3 goals in a span of 6 minutes.
Yeah.
JD is worried. He wants to take the over. He's a little bit worried, though. He thinks there might be 20 shots by Man City, but only 1 goal, because we have seen him do that.
Oh, JD, I mean, we kind of bow to your knowledge in recent weeks as well, mate. you've been schooling us on your picks rather than us getting it right.
For sure. Now, listen, those are great 3 bets. There's not much else in the European side with all the big other sides finished this weekend. But there is one match this weekend that I am kind of intrigued with, or this week, and it does have a Prem side in it. Ian, can you do a quick preview of the Europa Conference final?
Yeah, sure. Happens on Wednesday. We got Fiorentina versus West Ham United. Both sides are pretty. I mean, Fiorentina finished higher up than West Ham did in the Premier League, but both sides certainly had better second halves to the season than they did first halves. But very evenly matched teams. Not a lot between them. Both have very solid defenses and solid bases. I mean, I look at the midfield for both sides, and Fiorentina very strong there in there with Amrabat, who we saw do brilliantly for Morocco in the World Cup, and Mandagora in their West Ham with Rice and Souček. So very, very, very solid guys in that holding midfield roles, and it allows those players going forward to try and get goals. Artur Cabral has been fantastic for Fiorentina. He's definitely a goal threat. I think the likes of Jared Bowen, Lucas Paqueta will be very, very threatening for West Ham as well. I think there's not a lot to choose that one, and it will be nervy as well. I think that one really could go all the way to penalties. I don't think there'll be much. I wouldn't think there'll be many goals in that one. But this is what really bugs me about this, right? You've got 2 pretty big sides. I'm not sure how many fans Fiorentina get, but they have been a very big side in the past. West Ham traditionally get 60,000 fans at home every week. They put that in a stadium where there's only 20,000 capacity. So there's only 4,000 fans from each team is allowed, and they give 12,000 out to fucking corporate sponsors.
Yeah, and on top of that, my opinion, you're putting it on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Midweek final? I mean, come on, people. Listen, that is the second to last match in European football. The last one will be next Saturday, June 10th. It will be the Champions League final. I think, Ian, we are going to be doing a preview video for that, and then we will be live streaming that match. So can you give us a quick preview? There'll be more to come later this week, but a quick preview of Champions League.
Yeah, well, again, I think it's quite similar to the FA Cup final. Man City will be favourites, and I think probably some people will have them as very, very heavy favourites and won't give Inter Milan much of a chance. But I think that is being a bit unfair to Inter. They are a pretty dangerous side, and they are a side that can be quite explosive with a lot of pace and power in transition. And they will know that Man City will just dominate the ball, and they'll have to be good defensively. So you do have that contrast in styles again. I kind of think Man City will be too strong. But again, we've seen Man City balls it up in the past, like a couple of years ago they did against Chelsea. So you can't rule Inter Milan out in that one at all.
JD compliments that statement. He says, don't underestimate Inter Milan. And he's JD says he's betting 2.5 under the Champions League final. In finals, I do tend to go a little more under, as especially if both teams are kind of 1-1 near the 80th minute. I think we've seen this in the World Cup finals. Yeah. You kind of see teams kind of bring it in a little bit, maybe then in the first half of that extra time go for it, and then reel it back in to go to penalties.
Yeah, you do see a lot of sides playing with a fear of losing, and don't want to make a mistake early, don't want to give the opposition an early lead. So there is a lot of trying to keep the game tight and trying to keep the game turgid. I'd say Man City always are the side that do that, though. They kind of similar. They usually play in quite a similar vein, no matter who they're playing and what the occasion is. So I don't think you're going to see any difference in the way they play. I think a game that isn't fluid and a game that's very stop-start and a game that's very awkward suits Inter Milan more than it suits Man City. So I imagine Inter will go out and try and commit a lot of fouls, make it quite nasty, and try and knock City out of their rhythm to stop them from just passing the ball around.
Can't wait for it. We'll come out with a preview video next week, specifically on the Champions League match, and then again, we will be here live for that final live streaming that. Now, enough of world soccer news, Ian. Let's all say the Pledge of Allegiance and start talking about the MLS, which is the biggest soccer competition that goes on during this summer, I guess, apart from the Women's World Cup. It has been an exciting 7 days in the MLS. We not only had match day number 15 last Saturday, but we also had match day number 16 midweek. And Ian, our beloved St. Louis City team, they only did play in match week 15. They did not have a midweek game, and it was a convincing win over Sporting KC. They are now, St. Louis City, 6-0-1 when they score first. They have shot back up the standings to second place in the Western Conference, just 1 point behind Seattle, but they have 3 games in hand, and they're going to play twice over the next week, with tonight going up against the Houston Dynamo at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And then actually, they have a midweek kind of one-off game where they're going to finish a match versus Dallas, in which that game was suspended about a month ago due to thunderstorms in the 55th minute. Now, Ian, this is the time where I normally tell you what I learned last week in the MLS, but there have been some big stories coming out this week, and they all involve the Miami FC team owned by Mr. David Beckham. So I want your first-hand answers to this, being an Englishman yourself. Rumors are swirling that Messi is coming to Miami, and second, it may appear that Beckham finally had enough with Phil Neville, because he is out as manager of the team. He was sacked this past week because Miami's in last place. What are your thoughts? Number one, does Messi come to the MLS? And what about Phil Neville? Was it his time to go?
I think this Messi story has quite a lot of legs to it. I mean, especially when you put in the wrinkle, it isn't just, Messi coming to play for Inter Miami only. There is a deal in place for Lionel Messi for huge money. We're talking like 50 million over the course of a few years. It's for Lionel Messi to come and sign for Inter Miami, but then be loaned back to Barcelona for a couple of years to play for them, and then end his career in Inter Miami after that. Now that suits all parties quite well. Messi is desperate to go back to Barcelona to kind of have his fairy tale reunion with the club that he was at since he was a teenager, and the club he had so much success with. Barcelona want him back, but it's Barcelona don't have a huge amount of money to spend on players these days, and they can't just blow money on wages and signings and stuff like that. So the fact that they could maybe get Messi back on loan would be beneficial to them. And Inter Miami, absolute no-brainer. One of the biggest names in world football, one of the best players ever to play the game. He comes over, you're going to make a huge amount of money selling whatever it is they wear in Miami. You corrected me that they don't wear shirts over there. Those beautiful pink shirts will be everywhere, and it'll raise the profile of the MLS. So while you do see a lot of silly stories around this time of year in football, and everybody is linked to everybody, I think there's more than a kernel of truth to this one, and I wouldn't be shocked if it did happen. and it would be an amazing deal for Inter Miami, if they could get it. Talking about Phil Neville, I feel that's been a story that's been brewing for a few weeks. I feel Inter Miami have been really poor this season. I don't think he's done a very good job there, and they've went on a bad run. And that 1-0 defeat they had in the week, was it to the New York Red Bulls or New York City FC? One of the two New York side, was just the final straw. That they're not playing well. They don't look like they're going to turn the form around. And at some point, you have to make the managerial change to try and save the season. Now, the only thing was Beckham going to do that to one of his friends? And it's proved that he was going to do it.
Well, I just think that's the sign of being a good owner, is you can't put your friendship before the success of a club. If Messi does come, I think we're a Ronaldo away for being the biggest league in all of the world.
Well, you're certainly the biggest league in America.
All right, listen, enough about Messi and Miami FC. The question is, what are we looking forward today in match day 17? First off, Seattle and Portland, huge rivalry game in the Western Conference, and Seattle has lost 3 of their last 4. Can they manage a result tonight versus the Timbers? Cincinnati, they have broken the record for most points through 15 games. They have 36 points, a new record in the MLS through 15 games. Can they cruise to victory tonight against a bad Chicago team that at times has beaten some good squads throughout the league? Now, also, to go back to Miami, will they be fired up at home against DC United tonight after Neville was cast out of his managerial position? Teams do tend to play a little bit better after a sacking. And lastly, Philadelphia Union and Nashville, they are a combined unbeaten in their last 15 matches. Will they continue to stay hot? But of those storylines there's a game that actually I haven't mentioned, and it is what I'm focused on tonight, and it is my guaranteed MLS bet of the week. It's between Austin FC and Real Salt Lake, and I think this is going to be a good one. Both of these teams this season, they've been up and down. Neither one can get a streak of good results going. Austin coming off a decent win versus Minnesota midweek, and Real Salt Lake is kicking themselves midweek for giving up 2 goals in 3 minutes late to the LA Galaxy to lose that match. Now, what has plagued both of these teams up until recently is their inability to score. For the last 3 weeks, these teams have been putting the ball in the back of the net. The wins, though, they're not appearing for them because their defense is letting goals in at will. Real Salt Lake tied for the most goals given up in the Western Conference, and Austin not too far behind. Austin has been in better form as of late. I expect them to shine here at home. But Real Salt Lake will add a goal here, and I think this is going to be a 2-1 or 3-1 result. So my guaranteed MLS bet of the week is going to be Austin, Real Salt Lake, over 2.5 goals.
Good stuff, Matt. One other thing, just in the MLS, Portland, Seattle, I think, happening quite early game, I think, today. Early-ish, still late for me, but early enough for me to watch it. Seattle versus Portland, that should be a pretty decent game, happening one of the early games in the MLS. Other than that, I just wanted to say, Luton Town Premier League side.
Luton Town is in the Premier League side. I think we talked about this off air earlier this week. I did not know this, but they have to put, is it correct, millions of dollars to get a bad stadium, or not a bad stadium, but just a lower league tiered stadium up to par to be eligible for the Premier League?
Yeah, I think bad stadium is a little bit harsh. Old stadium is probably a better one. It's a stadium that's been around for many years and it's desperately been needing of refurbishment. And actually, Luton are not only a couple of years ago, I think, from moving away from Kenilworth Road, but they need to be able to get additional cameras into the ground for broadcasting for the Premier League, and they need to make some additional updates to the floodlights to make the lighting better. So nothing that a £100 million Premier League bonus for getting promoted won't be able to fix, but it is money that takes away from their playing ability to strengthen the squad a little bit. But look, huge story. Great to see a club like Luton, who got relegated the year before the Premier League actually started, so they've never been in the Premier League. So it's another new first time they'll be in it, and a lot of people do draw attention to that Kenilworth Road ground, and it will be interesting to see the big teams come and play there next season.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. Just a couple months away from European football, kicking back off, but we haven't finished yet. We will be back here next Saturday. We won't have a live show. We'll have a recorded Champions League prediction video coming out, and then we'll be live at 2:45 p.m. Eastern Time right here on YouTube with our Champions League live stream. I know there's been talks of maybe doing Nations League final. I don't know. We'll still figure that out here. And we'll
England in it.
Huh?
Are England in it?
England is not in it, and you know what's crazy is the USA is also not in it. I don't know how both those teams.
Screw it! I'm not doing that. I ain't covering no team. It ain't England.
Later this month, I think we'll gear up for MLS predictions. Our time might change. I don't know if we're going to stay with the 9 a.m. We'll take a look at that. We'll keep you updated. And also, I'm sure we'll do something for Women's World Cup. I mean, that's a big thing later this summer. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. We had a nice group in here today. Appreciate y'all stopping by. This is going to be on replay, so if you missed Ian's 3 best bets and my MLS bet of the week, make sure you just toggle back and forth. Check it out. And we will see you live next week with Man City and Inter for the Champions League final. Have a good one.